Hi, everyone. Welcome to Always Be Reading. I'm Chantel, your host, and tonight I am so excited because tonight is the very first episode of a sub-series that I've been wanting to do for a long time that I call Books with Friends. And it just pretty much is that. It is reading a book and discussing it with a friend and just having a good time talking about all the ins and outs and experiences and ahas that we have while reading. And tonight, my dear friend, Stefani Roth, has decided to be the very first friend, and we are discussing Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. So I'm so excited, Stefani, that you are here. Thank you so much for saying yes and for being the very first and reading parables with me. So yeah, before we get started, I do want to say this is a spoiler zone. We are going to full free.
True.
We can talk about it all. So if you haven't read Parables yet and you don't want to know what happens, then this is when you need to exit and then read it and then come back. We will be here. And I also want to say that we would love to know your comments or your thoughts along the way if you have any, and you want to join in the conversation as well. We are here for that. So without further ado, I've been so excited to talk about this book with you. I've really been like, I actually have been like, oh, I don't want to talk to you on the phone because I didn't want to get into talking about the book. That's been hard.
I noticed that because even when we had to talk earlier, I was like, oh, and then I had to pull myself back
Yes.
because I was anxious for this conversation tonight.
Yes. So I want to say, for those that are, I'm new to Octavia Butler, new, not by her name. I know her, I know of her. I've never read any of her works just because her works fall outside of the genre that I like reading. I was never into sci-fi or futurism or fantasy or anything like that. But I joined a book club that meets at Kramer's bookstore. And I wanted to stretch myself this year. So I joined this book club, and all we read is Black sci-fi, Afrofuturism. And so this was one of our books. And I'm so excited and so happy that I read Octavia Butler.
Oh, that's an understatement, right? I mean,
Yes.
she, like, I had heard her name in the ether, and the irony is quite the opposite for me. This is my genre. This is
Oh.
what I love. So dystopian, Margaret
Mhm.
Atwood, like all of the sort of like Oryx and Crake, that sort of series. So I was thrilled when you suggested this particular book because I had been trying to figure out like which way I wanted to enter her sort of vast offerings. And when you said this, I was like, oh yes, this is perfect.
Okay. So this is a real, there's no particular pathway of conversation that we're having tonight. We're going to go where it goes. We're just going to go where it goes. I had a very different reaction and experience after I finished this book.
Oh, tell me more.
I finished this book and I didn't have thoughts right here. I couldn't access all my thoughts. I found that I needed a long time to process, like my processing. And I think because, which is not normal for me. Like normally if I finish a book, I'm like, "Oh, I could talk about it right then." But this book, I actually needed the space and time. And I still feel like I even would benefit from even more space and time because there's so much. And I was wondering, like, why was that? It's such a different experience for me. And I think it's because as I was reading this, the way that she wrote it, which is on the one hand so simplistic, plain language, right? It's so
very
simplistic,
accessible.
very accessible.
Yep.
Almost like in parts reporting out, right? These diary entries, like reporting out almost. I was so present in it. I think I was so present inside of it that I wasn't also analyzing or thinking at the same time. I'm thinking that's what happened to me. I was really in it. I don't
So,
know.
so what do you think? Like, I'd love to pick up on that. So she chose to write this book through like diaries,
Yes.
connected to her burgeoning earth seed, which we'll talk a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But how do you think that choice of using a diary entry kind of put you in that space in the
Yeah.
first place?
I think that, I mean, it does what that type of writing does, right? It does just draw you right there. You're right there. You're inside. I think of
The
the
unfiltered, you're
person,
getting
and you're
her
unfiltered.
unfiltered.
It's
Yeah.
that stream of
Yeah.
consciousness. It's that thinking. It's not as edited, and I think that so the style definitely did that, and I think there was also this it was very tangible. Sometimes I think when diary entries or the use of the genre, I think sometimes authors are like, I'm going to use this genre to tell this story,
Mm-hmm.
and the genre, and it's really
Because I don't
and
know
it's
how to paint the picture.
right,
Yeah.
and it's the vehicle,
Yeah.
and it might fit well, but this one, it was just so authentic that it was it. I just the way I think the simplicity of the language, it just felt real. It felt like um it felt so real to me, and I was so drawn in that I was there kind of with her step by step, trying, not knowing, just trying to figure it out, but not knowing what's going to happen next. And the other thing I think, now that, okay, light bulb went off because you haven't had time to process this.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing I think happened is that I didn't have time to emotionally process all of the death and the violence that happened
Well, just like she didn't.
because she didn't.
She didn't. So
She
you
didn't.
had
And
to, yeah.
I did. And so I think I, at the end of it, I think that's why I'm like,
Oh, like you got to safety
I
and you
get,
got
yes.
to pause and
And I
reflect.
got to pause.
But you had to grieve first because there were a lot of amazing people we
Yes.
lost and we never even knew what happened to them.
No. And sometimes,
Yeah.
and it was just so like page 49, Amy Dunn is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just,
That's the 4-year-old that
that's
she
the
had just
4-year-old. And it's
befriended.
just
And it
like,
was her first entree into motherhood or
yes,
taking care of children. So
yes,
that was sort
yes.
of an interesting perspective for her to take on too.
Exactly. And then the next moment, it was like, and moving, and kind of moving on. And so my, I was disoriented
Oh, that's a good word.
constantly. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
constantly disoriented.
yeah.
I wasn't able to find like, okay, we can take a breath here. Okay, this is safe. Okay. None of that.
No,
And that's what I feel
no.
like is so brilliant about
Well,
this
it is,
book.
and going back to the diary entries, like taking that too was what struck me. Like the first couple of times I was like, huh, I wonder why she did it that way,
Mhm.
because she would continue the diary entry, but it was about the couple of days before, which gave you that increased sense of there's no electricity going
Right.
on, so you're gonna be doing things when you have
Or
time to
when you
do
have,
them.
right.
You have to be moving, otherwise you may be set on fire, killed, attacked, or found out.
Yes.
And so it was that like dedication to wanting to be precise about when the
Yes.
things happened and capturing it, but you felt in her having to do that the sense of, well, I can't do this anymore today. Like we've got to
Right.
feed people, we've got to look out for people who may harm us, all of that. I'll pick it up 2 days from
I'll
now
pick
when
it
we
up
have
2 days from now.
a
I
rest.
I really loved the use of that.
Yeah.
I feel like she used the
Yeah.
journal way, in a way that was, I don't, I don't remember it being used in this way.
I don't either,
And
because
I
it's
really
usually
love
very
that. Yes,
encapsulated, like,
yes,
oh, I went out, this happened, that happened.
yeah,
I'm telling you my innermost thoughts. Now we're on the next day.
yes,
But her need to
hmm,
continue that narrative
yes,
and sort of sew it up, as it were, to continue the seeds and the tending, because she was tending the garden of the story
hmm,
along the way as well.
right. And I really saw that this journal, which is a simple thing when you think about it. I'm a journaler. It's a simple thing, but I see it as an act. I see her seeing it perhaps as an act of resistance. There is a
Totally.
line in this story
Totally.
that will stay with me forever. And it's a line, and she repeats it a couple of times. And she says, I intend to survive.
Yes,
I
she does.
intend to survive. And she does. And I think that one of the ways that she survives and she intends to survive is her journal. It's through this resistance. It's not even just I intend to survive and like me, myself right now in my present life, but I intend to survive, like this
So that's
future.
fascinating. Yeah. So let me ask you this question too, while you said that. Now we know that she was writing Earthseed separate,
Yes.
and she journaled about the development of Earthseed in the journal. Do you think, and maybe this isn't obvious, but do you think she also intended for someone to read her journals at some point too?
You know what? I think so.
Okay.
I think that she's kind of maybe the type of person that's like when she collected and cared for those seeds,
Mm-hmm.
the seeds were meant to be planted, but and they were meant to be bountiful.
Right.
They were meant for the community, and I feel like, as you were saying, like the tending of the journal, like the tending of the garden, like
Yeah.
the tending of the people. I
Yeah.
think all of that, that the act of tending and caring and all of that as forms of, I think, of like resistance of what was going on around them. And I think that all of that was for not just for her, but for others. It was not a self-indulgent journal, and that's
No,
just
no,
not
no, no,
it.
no.
Yeah.
And in fact, unlike other journals that or journal like motifs, there wasn't a lot of emotional sort of either vitriol
Right.
or like messiness, like
Right.
even within her own thoughts. And even I it struck me with the precision with which she described every person that
Yes.
might join their group, and the balance was always there. And maybe that's the tending too.
Yeah.
There was always the promise and the peril in every person they picked up,
Exactly.
whether it was
Exactly.
the young father with his daughter,
Mhm.
or the two ladies, or I'm not a Jill and
Allie, I think.
yeah, Allie.
Mhm.
But she foretold a picture of the whole person,
Yes. Yes.
even when she was mistreated. She
Yes.
foretold, because let's go to dad for a minute too, because
Yes.
that's
That's
a
a
whole
very
thing.
interesting. I'm glad you went there because I was definitely wanted to talk about dad. Yeah.
Yeah, dad was hard, because he was the protector, he was the provider, and he was the abuser in some
Yeah.
instances. And
Yeah.
that was hard, and yet she showed him in all of his lights, and she
Yeah.
forgave him in all of the ways in which he tried to be a better man.
I One of my favorite characters in this book is the dad, actually.
Okay.
And I loved I had an affection for their relationship.
Yeah.
I also had a real sense of, like, that dad was tangible to me. You know what I'm saying? In a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
There was so much that I saw of like my dad of being, you know, a gatherer,
Mm-hmm.
a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Also though,
Terror.
making sure his girls are like able and ready.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would say these things. He's like, I got to make sure you get through the checkpoint. I need to know that you know how to stand. Like there were things that my dad had 4 girls, and there were things that he needed to know that we knew how to do. And I found like the
Yeah.
fathers, like, you know, training on the gun safety and just
Right, right.
the positive things that he instilled in her, and the children were there. But he was also a flawed man,
Yes.
you know, and
Well,
he also was a man full of fear.
yes.
And I
Do you
think
think
that
he
that
showed preference?
violence, huh?
Yeah. Do you think he showed preference to Lauren over the
I,
other
I
4?
I definitely do think that he showed preference to her. I think the relationship is so different.
Okay.
I think the son, Keith, I think,
Yeah, it was Keith.
Keith, he I think Keith made him afraid because he saw the trajectory of where Keith was going. And Keith was rebelling
Yeah.
and pushing out in a way that was very dangerous and
Yes.
became a threat to his family,
Yes.
not just to himself,
Yes.
but to his family. And I think that when a man is encounters that, you know, there are things that happen. So I think with Lauren, um she wasn't, I don't think that he thought like my daughter is like goo goo gaga over dad. Like she just, you know, Lauren is a strong, you know, minded person. I think he felt respect. She respected him.
She
She
certainly did.
totally respected him, but I don't think that he thought she just gave her brain away. Like, you know, she had a sense of agency
Right.
still, I think.
No, in
Um,
fact, he tried to get her to be cautious about who she shared with. And,
yes.
like when she shared with Julie, earlier in the book about, don't you see what's going on? Like everything is crumbling, like we have
Yes.
to be ready.
Yeah.
And she had the strength to be able to understand that. And what she really quickly realized is nobody else did.
Nobody else
Not
did.
her dearest friend, but
Nobody else did.
can I ask you one more question though in that? Because what I thought was really fascinating, and I wondered if this was like almost an 18-year-old awakening,
Mm-hmm.
was when she finally got the nerve to begin to have the conversation with Julie, with Curtis,
Yeah.
and that their responses were all like, of course we all think that.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's that myopic sort of like coming into being as we grow,
Right.
that's like, oh, other people see what I see, or
Yes.
other people. And yet it's kind of the difference between who can see it but who's moved to action and what you're going to do about it.
Exactly. That that's just so timely now, right? Who can see stuff and
That's
who's
what struck
moving to
me.
action.
Yep. Yep.
And and I was really, an action, her action was taking place well before the action. She was in
Completely.
preparation mode.
Yeah.
And
Which
it
she
was,
learned from her
which
father,
she
just to
learned from
go
her
back to
father.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I feel like
He had the books.
Lauren
He had
had the
the,
books.
yeah.
Lauren was prepared. He was training and preparing for the community to be able to defend itself as best as they could before the real threat came to their
Yeah.
walls. He also, because of the faith and the belief,
Yeah.
he also gave people a reason together. He
Yes.
gave people hope,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And because of this faith, he actually helped establish how no, we take care of one another.
That's right.
So there
That's
is so much, even though she differed from from the belief, right? She
yeah.
veered differently from the Christian belief. I think that there was so much that she received that was planted in her that she allowed to
Those
grow,
seeds again
those
were
seeds
planted. Yep,
that she was
100%.
able to take, and she was able to do what she did and lead in the way that she did, and also pursue a vision, because her father had a vision
Yeah.
of, of this, and she was able to have a vision, and she was able to pursue it. And so I I really loved, I loved that relationship, but I also loved being able to see the father in a three-dimensional, in that gray mattered space way, and that
That's
he
right.
wasn't just written like flat,
That's right.
that
Yep.
one surface.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
that's the stuff of humanness. His
Yeah.
How his relationship changed with his wife after,
Well,
like,
and also the wife herself. Like, I do think, like, something that struck me is sort of like the three sort of strong women in the front of the book
yeah,
is actually the mother who's not present,
yes,
the one who made poor decisions, who took drugs, who, because of that embodied her with hyperempathy. The stepmother, now, what, Cato, was it?
yes, yes.
Cato, who actually struggled to love Lauren with the same level of sort of abandon that she had for
Mhm,
her other four boys,
mhm.
so it was actually conditional love.
Right.
And then Lauren, who was able to almost extend unconditional
Unconditional
love.
love. Yes.
That
Yes.
was really striking to me before we meet all the other women that are part of that.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
that sort of, that juxtaposition wasn't lost on me, that
Right.
she had to mother herself in the absence of a mother,
Mhm.
because Cato was really so focused on the boys.
On the boys.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also think that that is commentary on how societies in certain cultures
Yeah.
esteem or hold more privilege, you
Oh yeah.
know?
Boy moms, that whole, like, oh, my boys,
Right.
and yet,
Right.
I guess I was struck that it was like, but you have a daughter here,
Mhm.
but it wasn't of hers, which
It wasn't
I
of
actually
hers.
usually, in some ways, I was like, well, that's kind of this typical wicked stepmother.
Mhm.
But, I was kind of bummed as that sort of rolled out, because when you first meet the family, it does feel like they're an intact family.
It does, but I also read that part. I hated the choice of the stepmother, that
Oh,
she
yeah.
did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
However, I also couldn't judge it,
Mm, yep.
because, and I think that that's a thing where she writes characters in such honoring ways that you have to grapple with, like, oh, I can't stand that you did that, but I understand where that came from, or I don't want to judge, you
Well, and look
know,
at what Cato had to
this
go
thing.
through.
And
She
this is
lost her
exactly,
son,
she lost her son.
and ultimately probably they lost all their lives. We don't know
Right,
for sure. Who knows?
right, right.
But she lost her oldest
She
son, and that
lost
is,
it's she it was
yeah,
it's just trauma on top of trauma, devastation, and it's kind of like, how much can you take?
yeah, yeah.
And 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 it wasn't just a loss of a son. It
No,
was in any in and it's never normal, but in any humane way,
yeah.
it was just the mental knowledge of the torture, what the child went
Graphic
through.
nature.
I
Yeah,
can't judge that.
yeah. And
I
it broke the family.
It
It
broke
was
it broke
it
the
was the loss
family.
of the family, it was the loss of the husband, it was
Yes,
in the way in which she had thought things would unfold, it was the
yes.
loss of the son, it was the loss of
Mhm,
the
mhm,
compartment, all the
mhm.
while losing
Yeah,
control of the whole,
yeah,
community.
yeah,
It was loss of safety.
yeah.
I mean, there
It
was,
was I love how you describe that, because to me, when Keith died, it that was the break of the wall around that family. That
Yes.
was the breach.
Yes.
That was the breach.
Yes.
And my heart ached for the father that
Me
kept
too.
going out
Yep.
and looking for his son.
Yep.
It's like, what, I can't have any expectations of this family, I think. I mean, I can't expect it. It's so, I would want to say how I would act. I would want to think I would act a certain way. And the truth is that I don't know. I can't judge, that losing a child, that type of devastation
Yeah.
is very difficult for families, intact, like whole families,
Oh,
no step,
totally. Totally.
to
Not, yeah.
to kind of to deal with. And I didn't think, I didn't get a sense that, I think Lauren, who just had such wisdom about her, and she didn't hate her stepmother for it.
No, she did the same as she's done with every other
With
character,
every other
every other
character.
person.
Yes.
She talked about the good and the
And
bad
the bad.
of
Exactly.
the experience of being with
Exactly.
them, with a kind of grace and understanding,
Yes.
and some emotion. She wasn't a
Yeah.
robot, but she found forgiveness because, God is change, and everything that you touch, you change and changes
Yes.
you. And
Yes.
she understood that interplay of that friction, and that the two of them sort of ground against each other. What role?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I
I was
was going to ask, what role did the hyper empathy
That's
have?
where I was going to right now.
Oh, there we go.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask that, because I wonder, like, she's able to feel on such deep levels, and to feel things outside of her, things
Yep.
she didn't cause.
Yep.
And so that trains you in such a way.
Well, it does. And yet I don't get the sense that she ever truly was able to, just like she hurt when people she cared about really hurt. She spoke with grace about the pain Cato had, but she didn't seem to be as affected.
She wasn't physically affected, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you had shackles around your feet,
Yeah.
and you know what it feels like to walk with shackles around your feet, because you were a slave.
Yeah.
Even when you were free, and you don't have the shackles, and you don't have the imminent danger of being
with the
free,
same gate,
and you see somebody, though, that has it, you have that, something about that. And I think that her pain, or her empathy, her hyper empathy, trained her. She has just more wisdom about suffering and pain and loss, probably in ways that the average ones of us don't, because we have a singular experience of it.
Yep.
And she's
Yep.
had a shared experience of it.
Yep.
And so even though she might not have shared Cato's exact pain in that moment, I think that when you have things about you that just mature you, or you have more understanding, that's probably, I think she had more of an understanding of that pain, or that grief, or that trauma.
Well, she also had no choice. That was the only mother she'd ever
The
had.
only mother she had, yes.
So as much as there wasn't the type of emotional connection or camaraderie even that she had with her father, there was a respect for the role in the household as mother.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like she, given what she had, given the circumstances, it's like, this is the best that this woman can do, given what has transpired. I was really happy that she and Keith had a moment.
I was too, and
that made me
and the way
that
she
made me happy.
described the moment was just perfection.
Yeah.
Like you could feel the dance between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could feel the moments of like, oh, at one point we actually were joined and connected. And then the sort of like, but now we're in these like almost primitive animalistic stages of our growth.
Yes.
And we're gonna like walk around and eye each other with a little bit of suspicion and yet have some grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought she did that perfectly.
She did it so well. And I liked the fact that what I really appreciated about that was that there was some redemption for Keith, you know?
Yeah. I think we all needed it too.
We did. We needed it.
We were all angry with him because he was breaking the family. He was doing stupid things just as much as we were all so upset with, like, the salve was that that the father kept going out looking for him because he did beat him and he did damage him and but he still loved him and was trying to do what was best. But
and so I thought he went out not because he beat him and damaged him, but I'm like, he went out because he loved him and that's his son. I think like, I don't know if guilt drove him out so much as I think love drew him out.
I think it was, I don't know, because it feels like it might have been a little both, you know, because I think he was sorry and he was never given the opportunity to really make it up. Because after that, Keith withdrew himself. You will never have the present of me again.
Right.
And so Keith had been gone for a while without him looking for him until it was that point at which, oh, we may have lost him forever.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was heartbreaking. That was really heartbreaking.
But did you know it was going to come? Did you know it was going to happen?
You know, I think that I wasn't shocked that I thought he lived longer than I thought he would.
Okay.
I gave him, I was like, wow, he's still okay. He's, you know, coming back. I wasn't shocked that he died. I didn't have a space to grieve his death. I think that's like, because when the grief was happening with the mom and there was grief, I was so still focused on Lauren and her movement. That's who I was tracking with emotionally.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like seeing all the things, like she saw the things around and what people were doing or how they were dealing with it. But I think she had made a peace with it. Like she knew, you know, that something terrible is going to happen. But I don't know. For me, I think at the end of the story or towards the end, when they're on the land.
Yeah.
And she's like, let's have a funeral. Let's allow everyone to be able to acknowledge the death.
Yeah.
And the lost ones. That moment, it wasn't big enough to acknowledge all the things that I had read through.
Yeah.
And it was still not long enough for me. But I felt
like it went so fast.
It went so fast. That's why I'm like, it still wasn't, but I felt like there was this attempt to try to do that. But it wasn't, and which is why at the end of it, I'm like, I need to, you know, I need to go. But I definitely do feel like when you are moving, when you are soldiering, when you are surviving and you're in survival mode, I feel like that's what that looks like. You don't have time to grieve. You don't have time to mourn the dead. You don't have time because you are like, you got to make it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of where this whole story was, you know.
Do you think that she and I just, as you were talking, it made me think of this, like, that went so fast, and yet I know that this was supposed to be part of a trilogy.
Yes.
Right. So I desperately want to read Parable
I'm
of the
reading. Okay,
Talent.
good. Because I was going to ask you at the end if you're going to read the second one.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes.
totally.
Yes. So we'll,
I'm
yes.
in. I'm in.
Yes.
And I wondered for a moment if she knew she was going to at that point, and she wanted to sort of remind us who these characters were, what they'd been through, the losses that they'd suffered, moving into that next book.
Yes. Yes. I think that that's brilliant. And I think that that's brilliant, and I can definitely see the strategy of that. I also think that, and I might be wrong, but I think it was the first ceremonial act that the group did together of the bones, and the, like, that was more,
I think you're right.
official,
I
and
think
not
you're right.
just kind of we wander into a conversation or we wander into questions about something.
Well, because right before they got to the land, there was the time that she gathered them and said, "Are you going to come?
Are you going to come?
You know,
And
are you in?"
so, are you in or out? And
Yeah.
so when they got to the lands, and then they were, and then I was just like, oh my gosh, are we serious?
I know.
Oh my God. I didn't even have any emotions for his loss at that point.
That's so funny because I didn't either. And yet it was devastating because,
Yeah.
and then I found myself flipping back through the diary, trying to figure out the time on the road.
Yes.
Such that the point at which he left, because that wasn't quite a hole for me, but he had a way of communicating. But
Yes, he had a way of communicating.
there had been a blip in time, but it, like,
Right.
the extent to which that family was eradicated. They weren't killed.
They
They
were
were eradicated.
done. Yes.
I mean, that all that is left is a
Yes.
lone chimney as a tombstone, she says.
Yes.
And the
And
relics of some bones. There's not even, they've been picked dry.
Yes.
Literally by the animals, by
Yes. And there was such, like, when he spoke about his land, his family, his sisters, to me, I was like, normalcy, right? Yes. And what it did for me, or what it reminded for me, is the fact that I think that there's a line, we're all in this current, not all, but those of us who are in this season of, when is it going to get back to normal?
Oh yeah.
When is it gonna, when is normal gonna come? Oh, well, if this happens, right? This is a sign of normalcy. And we're all looking for that.
Right.
And there's this line, gosh, where did I write it down? About how things are just, it's like breaking and breaking and breaking.
Yes.
It's breaking down and breaking down and breaking down, and they don't see it.
Well, that's part of why Harry decided to stay too.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because,
yes.
you know, I think he thought he was going to stumble upon normal too.
Yes.
And, you know, we can also, you know, trace back to Harry being one of the few, you know, white people in the initial group. And there's definitely conversations across the entire book, but about race, about privilege, but it's woven in such a way. It's so matter of fact. There's nothing shocking. There's no bemoaning. There's just like, it's a fact. You're a white guy. You can probably, of all of us here, you're the one most likely to go get a job. Here are the types of places you can work. And if you remember, I believe, was it Allie or was it, there was one of the Navidad, maybe, who basically suggested to him that he could work in one of those places that were like whipping people to keep them working.
Right.
And he was sort of, and
like, he was like, what?
You see me like that? You really think I could do that?
Right. Exactly.
And it's interesting because he's the softest of the three when we start out the journey.
Yes, he is.
he doesn't want to shoot things. He doesn't want to kill. He doesn't want to be mean to people. He's the
Right.
one that originally, Navra, Zara
Zara.
and Lauren have to be like, you don't talk to that person. What are you
Exactly.
doing? You can't help people.
He was not, he was also very judgmental at the
Oh yes,
beginning.
that's right.
And
That's
he
right.
was on a survival journey with certain, with, you know, all of his ethics and judgments intact,
Yes.
and, you know,
Yes.
all of that. And so we really did see a change. But I think like this point that you brought up about the work, there's another quote when that says this country has slipped back 200 years.
Yeah.
And we see like these things that I wouldn't consider myself doing. I think that fear or a flash of the mind of like, oh, but other people wouldn't have considered themselves doing that too, and they probably are,
Well, I mean, I
you
think that
know?
today of all days is a great day to have that conversation,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
you have the National Guard coming into DC. You have the desire to remove, to redline, all of the districts in Texas, which mostly take votes out of
black and
the hands of
brown.
Black and brown people.
Yep,
And you have, the outward conversations about, um, getting rid of the 19th Amendment for
yes,
women to vote, and that
yes.
it's one vote per household, and that's okay to say out loud.
It's okay to say out loud. And it is not that it's only, I think, okay to say out loud, but it's also the atmosphere has been cultivated enough
Hmm.
where it's like, no, we're ready for this part. We're ready to say these things out loud. And I,
And yep, and the notion of slavery,
yes,
going back to the shackles, and even going back to in the book early on, the only escape was basically to go to these, sort of, company driven,
companies,
sort of
yes,
places where you were basically in servitude to the company. Within what they provided was this loose sense of protection in
mm-hmm.
exchange for your servitude,
Your
that
servitude.
you would never be able to get out. You would work yourself to your death. You
Mm-hmm.
would drown in the debt that would continue all the time, such that they owned you, per
Yeah.
se. And just, I think I sent you the link for the, or maybe I didn't.
Disturbing, disturbing.
Well,
I
but he
listened
goes
to it.
on to say that, oh, well, the way we dealt with slavery and the chattel slavery,
Mm-hmm.
that was wrong. But there were plenty of white owners that were good to their people.
Mm-hmm.
That this is being said in 2025. Again, to your point, that it's not that it's in the open, it's that the stage has been set to go
Yes,
back 200 years and
exactly.
to try to reset that. And so,
Exactly.
yeah. So let me ask you this. How likely do you think we could be in the situation that she painted? Because she wrote it in the 70s, but it
Mm-hmm.
starts in 2024. It ends in 2027. How, where are we?
That's a tough question. I the line on page 292, it says things are breaking down more and more. And I think that we are well into, even before we thought we were,
Yes.
we are so past, we are well into
Yes.
things are breaking down
More
more
and
and
more.
more.
Yes.
And um and so and it's breaking, and it's happening now at such speed and publicly.
Yeah.
So the breaking down happened, but I think that part of the consequence of being privileged in a privileged nation, and for, we are a privileged nation,
Yep.
is um, we are coddled. We
Mhm.
are distracted,
Mhm.
distracted, you know. We are very much consumed with self
We're soft.
and We're soft. We are very soft. We don't have the muscle.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
We don't have the physical. We don't have
Mm-mm.
stamina,
Mm-mm.
ability. We don't have the mental, intellectual capacity. We are not
We're a
informed.
dually.
We are not informed. We don't know like things. We
Yeah.
are not hungry for knowledge, and we
No.
are not pursuing it.
No.
We also are very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
We have we many of us, I think, when you think about the epidemic of loneliness that
Yeah.
we all have, I think about the weaponization of loneliness. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I feel like
Yeah.
we are so we've been this has been like soil that has been tended and nutrients dropped into it and cultivated, and now it's like, oh snap.
Yeah. Yeah. But those seeds were been sown.
But those seeds have
Yeah.
been sown
Yep.
for a long,
It
long,
has.
long time, and we do, and there is no sense of urgency. And there
Well,
is, and we're not
right.
having conversations. It baffles. Sometimes I'm like, I'm driving down Pennsylvania Avenue this morning, and I'm seeing barricades,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing all of this police action and stuff going on. And at the same time, I'm seeing joggers and people strolling with Starbucks cups. And there's such a disorienting disconnect. I don't know if
Totally.
our mind is
Totally.
able to even connect and keep pace with what is happening.
Well, I would like to take that thought and then ask your thoughts on what about the pyros? Because not too much like Oxycontin
Yes.
sort of took hold and other
Yes.
things have taken hold over
Mm-hmm.
decades. Now we have a drug that
Mm-hmm.
also helps with that separation. And it to me, reading about those folks was very similar in the opposite direction to what you're just describing. People walking around with their Starbucks cups while people are being, arrested and thrown in vans, this sort of separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I that was an amazing sort of shakeup that she did when she introduced these folks that are so driven by this drug that they burn houses and it brings them more pleasure than even sex.
Yes. To tell you the truth, Stephanie, that part of the story, I'm like, I don't even know what to think about it. I think on one hand, I'm thinking that this is evil actualized.
Okay.
Um, there was a power. There is I think when something that this inability, there was such gratification
Yeah. Yes.
that they
In all of
derived
it, the
of it,
pillaging,
and all of
the
it. Yes.
scavenging, like the way
And
she describes the
yes,
people on the road and when the fire pops up
yes.
and
And
people are like
and all of it.
zombies
And
attracted
all of
to,
it.
yeah.
And there was such pleasure in seeing people be destroyed,
Yes. And
in the
we do that now on
destruction
social
of
media.
people, and we do it. And so I
Yeah.
think like I love the imagery of fire because
Yeah.
it's a natural element.
Yeah.
And also with her being, this is California, the landscape itself is a
That's true.
character.
That's
And
true.
and
You're right.
it's a relatable element. It's wild. It's natural though. And I think like when I think about humans, and what is wild and natural inside of us,
Yeah.
right? This what is our the flesh's ability to be self-centered, self-indulgent,
Yeah.
self-interested, and
Yeah.
when that catches hold, and when you feed that drug, that monster, that mental health, that mental unwellness,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
it, it is it's a contagion. And I was thinking
Yes.
of this
Yes, that's the
like
perfect
that.
word. Yeah, yep. It was a contagion, and that is how they would see it. Those
Yes.
fires, they were always looking for the fires,
For the
like
fires.
where were
For
they
the
going to pop
fires.
up? Would they get caught in the
Yes.
crossfire of
Yes.
people running towards the fire,
The
or
fires.
the gun, the open wrestling for,
Yes.
places or power?
Exactly. And they were also willing to, in their own life, to be a part of it. Like
Yeah.
their life, like several of them died in the fires
Yep.
or were harmed. There was such a commitment to it. And then when I think about like what could that possibly symbolize, right? What is there such a commitment to something? I think in our nation, and we're not the only, but we're going to
Mhm.
focus here. There's such a commitment to greed, to power. There's
Well, we
such a commitment to it
but we
that
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation. I
yeah,
think it's mental illness. I
yeah,
mean, to want to want money and power for no actual reason other than the collection would be called hoarding. And to hoard to an extent that has no actual I was watching something, and maybe we shouldn't talk politics here, but I
because
will. I was watching them
we
talk to,
can,
we can.
right?
They were talking to Linda McMahon
Mhm.
about, hey, the juxtaposition of we're feeding the big, beautiful bill. Some kids are going to lose health care. The kids who most need it the most. Like how much extra millions are an heiress who is sitting on 3.5 to 5 billion with a B
Yeah,
dollars, how many more millions are you going to get? She didn't even know. I'd have to ask my accountant.
right.
So it's the kind of money that they don't even know actually
Hmm.
affects them, but it absolutely affects those who have need. And
Right.
and that was something else that came up in the book was, and it happened multiple times, is that notion of making sure you look dirty, making
Yes.
sure you look like you
Yes.
don't have, make sure
Yes.
that your clothes weren't too clean, make sure that put money in places that people won't find, make sure that, you know, speak softly and carry a big gun, basically.
Right.
But that whole notion of no one was safe if you
No one
had
was safe.
anything.
You had to put a mask on.
Yeah.
I think it's Conti Collins says I wear the mask. It's a poem about the mask. Like this,
Mhm.
the outward presentation
Yep.
can't be my real self. It's dangerous.
Yep.
And you had that with the dirting of the clothes. You also had that. We also saw that when she disguised herself as a man,
Oh, that's
um,
right.
and walked around.
Yeah.
And it was hard to remember that she was walking as a man because we're reading
Right.
her,
Yeah, yeah.
thoughts. But that was like the when you talk about how I have to change myself in
Yep.
order to
Yep.
survive and
Yep.
fit in. And that happens all the time.
Right.
And for Harry, it happened less.
Well, and
Harry
that's
wasn't
right.
trying to. Harry didn't know that, honey, there are certain things that you're going to have to change about yourself
That's right.
because you are now outside of these walls.
Right.
You're
That's right.
now
That's
in the
right. And that
wild.
two women with one man would
Yes.
draw so much
So
more
much attention.
danger
Yes.
than two men and one woman.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
yeah. Yep.
And I also thought that it's interesting the conversation of class and
Yes.
caste.
Yes.
And there was definite class levels
Yes.
in this book, and we saw this really with the collection of people. You saw it in the community as well, but you really got to see in the collection of people and how um, the
Well, they
language, the
point
ways
out,
that people
right.
talked about one another and how they distinguished each other.
Well, remember, they noticed that the woman with the son and the
Yes,
man whose name is forgetting me with the daughter,
yes,
They had both been slaves.
Yes.
The way they hunkered down,
Hunker
the way
down.
they protected
Protective mode.
themselves immediately, and that they could see that in each other. And again, that hyper empathy.
The hyper empathy. And
Yeah,
I was really fascinated that the slaves had hyper empathy, and that was seen as a benefit, a commodity, an extra
that's right.
commodity to the slave owners. And
They could control them more.
that they can control them more. Yes.
Yep.
It was exploiting
Yep.
a weakness, which actually should have been a benefit, right?
Right.
But it
Right.
was used as to exploit,
But that's true today
and to
too,
control.
isn't it?
It's very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
very true.
Oh, you're over emotional. Oh, you know,
Yeah,
you're getting worked up over nothing. I'm going to
yeah,
gaslight you into pretending that what is here isn't really here.
yeah.
Instead of being curious about the emotion, being curious about the impact rather
Yes.
than the intent.
And I found that it was very interesting, probably for Lauren to, because this is the first time that she's been around other sharers, as she
Yep.
calls it.
Yep.
But it wasn't their first time being around other
No,
sharers. But it might have been their first time being around other sharers who were not in the social class that they were in.
that's right. That's true. That's a
And
really
so
good
they
point.
saw a Lauren who had, yes, in common, but she had a whole different type of agency about
That's
her.
right. That's right.
And she could wield it in ways that they just were not able to.
That's right. That's right.
And I found that was really very interesting.
Well, speaking of the agency, I would like to talk about Earthseed.
Yes,
We have not touched it yet.
yes,
And
yes.
so it is a simultaneous sort of rejection of God is what it appears to be at first. It actually reminded me a little bit of Elie Wiesel's Night in the journey of that first he had to reject, because how could a God who loved them so much forsake them so much?
Right.
And yet he comes to the end with his own deeper, different belief in what that means. But here, she knows that she has to take ownership of a view of God that is so much more personal and so much more real than what feels like sort of the big guy in the clouds or the big gal in the clouds.
Right.
And she tries to embed in this sense of responsibility and accountability and connection. That is, I guess that was the real shift that I saw in the way in which she moved her fundamental Christian sort of identity into this new religion, and then took them somewhere very interesting. That sort of notion of, and we're going to the stars.
Stars. We're going to the stars.
Yeah.
There's so much to say.
Yeah.
So there are a couple things that I found really interesting. Gosh, where did I? So one is when she's having this exchange with Bankole.
Oh yeah.
Her, and he says, "Oh, so you're going to convert people or something like that." And she's like, "No, I'm not converting people. I didn't create a religion. She's like, "I observed and I'm seeing."
She's
and I think that she's documenting. This Earthseed is based on what she sees.
Yeah.
What she sees and the change that she sees. There's so much about the environmental. I was listening to an interview. I was listening to one and it pissed me off. So I had to stop it because this was an interview with Octavia Butler. And she is sitting down and there's two white men that are interviewing her. Okay. And she's a grown woman. It's a grown conversation
already.
You see it rising up in me.
I do.
And this man had the nerve to say, "Okay, kiddo, your book was kind of good, kiddo." I was like, you know what, Octavia, Girl, I am so mad that you
On
had
your
to
behalf.
sit
You
down
just
at that
wrote
table.
circles
I
around those
just was
people.
like,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
could not. And it was so condescending. And
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, what we had to just endure,
Yeah.
what she had to sit through and
Yeah.
restrain herself.
Yeah.
So
So they
that
didn't look to her, as some of the
no,
conversations we've had,
no.
as someone who had wisdom to impart,
Oh no.
as
Oh
someone who had
no. Oh
something to
no. It
offer.
was like, oh, you're this fascinating anomaly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're this, let's pick and probe, kiddo.
Yep.
Like I just,
Yep.
but she was, her father was passing down faith.
Yeah.
And she was saying, I'm gonna, something is speaking to me based on what I see.
Yeah.
And I see this change. And so I listened to another interview about her basically her library of journals
Mm.
and her writing. And she was very much consumed and concerned about the environment. And
Yeah.
there was the first version of this book. She was very pointed, a lot more pointed, just more in your face about the environmental changes and what's
So is that
happening.
why we have to go to the stars? Is that why? Because
Yes,
we've ruined it
we
all?
ruined it
And
all. But she said
wow.
she took out in the second draft, she took out the directness
Okay.
of like the environmental stuff, because she said I just wanted people to experience it and see it and not be so in
Mhm.
your face. So all the rivers that have dried up,
Right.
all
That's
the
right.
things that are
Right. The
happening,
loss of water, the
all the
loss of
loss of
food,
water
the
that's happening
yep, yep,
around,
yep.
and what's happening and what we're doing to our planet, those are things. So God is, to her, what she's saying, God is change.
That's right.
And this
That's
is,
right.
and I can't,
Her
and it
whole life has
wasn't,
been
my
changed.
whole life has been
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
That's all she knows. And it
Yeah.
wasn't anything that she can, it wasn't God is love. It also wasn't God is not love. God
Right.
is not this emotional, God isn't, it's that. And what she says that I think is fascinating, she said when she was talking to,
Yeah.
um, she says, she says kids today have no idea what a blaze of light cities used to be, and not that long ago.
Yeah.
And she says the stars are free. I'd rather have the city lights back myself, the sooner the better, but we can afford the stars.
Yep.
There's something that's very practical and logical, almost scientific
Yep.
about Earthseed to me.
Yeah.
And that's like this, and this started when she was 12. This is also a book about becoming. It's a building romance type of book. It's a coming
Yeah.
of age story.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking and your world is chaotic and traumatic, and you're seeing all of this stuff, and you're still trying to like run outside and play, or
Yeah.
have a crush or
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think she there was a respect, and there
Yeah.
was seeds deposited from her father, and she was able to cultivate and use that. But it was like what she the reality of what she was seeing, I think, is what caught
Well,
her.
as a
And
coming
yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Hmm.
interrupt you. I'm thinking like when you said that though, what's missing from almost every other coming of age story, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a sense of frivolity at that age, a
Yes.
carefreeness.
Yes.
She didn't seem to have that at all. Even
No.
even her trysts with Curtis were
Yes.
very like structured
Structured
and
and
purposeful.
calculated.
And
Yes.
yeah, even when she talked about the type of things that
Yes.
they put on the ground and the layers of it such that they could
Yes.
have their affections,
Yes.
it was
It
very
wasn't it wasn't passionate, it wasn't wild, it wasn't carefree, it wasn't a sense of recklessness. She wasn't able to have a sense of recklessness because she intended to survive. And I
going
think
back
that
to the beginning. Yes.
naturalism, I think like
Yeah.
she's like, I intend to survive. And if that means I need to find a way off of this planet,
Oh,
I intend to survive.
yep. Yep.
And what she knows is I cannot survive by myself.
That's true.
And
That's
the
true.
other thing is that we cannot survive without diversity. I think this speaks a lot about diversity and the importance of diversity of skill set. They would not have survived without Zara, who
No.
was who had a whole different,
Yep. Yep.
she
Yep.
was like, I wasn't a whole different thing. They would not have survived without the slaves and their knowledge of
Yep.
what they knew to look for.
Yep.
They would
Yep.
not have survived without Benkoli, like the older man who was able to. I loved him, by the way. I know that was I did like him, and I
No,
wasn't mad about
no.
their relationship either. But I always thought I would marry somebody 20 years older than me. Anyway, Stephanie.
Well, I mean, I think what I saw was the ability to love her father again
Yes.
in a different way with the level of maturity she had. Now, I'm not going to say that there wasn't a little bit of it that sort of,
Hmm.
you know, but he spoke to it too.
He did.
You
He
know,
did.
he
And
spoke
and
to it.
I also loved the fact that it wasn't over romanticized.
No.
There was still, she was still her, she's very pragmatic.
Yeah.
She's very like, this is what I'm doing. She wasn't swooning. She wasn't a damsel. She didn't need him to rescue her. That's
Yeah.
not like, and he didn't need other things. So I think what they needed for each other, there was clarity and honesty in that. And so there was equal footing, even though she was under his age. There was equal footing, and I think that respect that she demanded in within her space, and how she negotiated for
Yeah.
her needs.
Well,
Um,
she does say, like, I remember the dialogue they had where he asked her about, his first wife,
yeah.
and he spoke to the fact that, she had always gone to church. She was very
Hmm.
religious. He wasn't,
Hmm.
but he went along because he cared about her. And I thought that was her like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
because Earthseed was going to be first.
Exactly. Earthseed was going to be first. And I think that she's like, I don't need people to be believers.
Yeah.
I need people to engage it.
Yeah.
So, whereas under her father, I am preaching and I'm giving you I'm forming you in this religion.
Yeah.
We didn't see anyone questioning. But in this Earthseed, she invited the question. She's
Yeah.
like, that actually is helping me form.
Yeah.
That actually, so the invitation, I think, was different. And I think it looks different from a lot of people's invitations into whatever mainstream or traditional religion that they might be ascribing to or experiencing, where questions can be seen as very dangerous.
Right.
And what we
Right.
want people is just to really consume this stuff, but not to wrestle with it. And what we're seeing in these conversations is a wrestling with it. And as they're wrestling with it and throwing questions and pushing back against things, she's not offended by that. It doesn't turn her off. She
No.
engages it. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Which is
yeah,
a type of freedom that we don't have really anywhere. We say we
exactly.
do, but ultimately we want to put people in boxes and compartmentalize everything.
We do.
And oh,
We
wait, you're
do.
disagreeing with me? I don't like that.
And I feel as though I was very fascinated with how this ended. It ended with
Yep.
biblical scripture
Yes. About the sower. Yes.
about the sower
Yes.
and the different seeds. And so
And the different
and the
outcomes.
different
Um,
outcomes
yeah,
of
some
of,
people
of the
flip
seeds.
over a rock. Some people,
Exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah,
what is in us, and who we are, right? And I think like there is this deposit that she pulls from, that is in her, that she uses and wields, and it's turned it into this other thing. And that's what we do, right? Our parents give us stuff and we take it, and we do our own kind of thing with it. We have our own interpretation of it, and it's useful for the times that we are living in our present. And so I feel like there was such a, I'm, being respectful to my father, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening. I'm not going to be the rebellious Keith, but I also am like, my father's God is not my God. And I'm on this journey to discover what my God is. And I think here it's like, it's not as simple. It's a little bit more complicated. There's a little bit more blurred lines of and there's a ton of more questions. We're not at the declarativeness of what Earthseed is and all of that. I think we're at the beginning of the questions, and she might be in a space and with enough community where she's able to perhaps explore, even more and of like what Earthseed is and what these verses are. And the last thing I want to say about Earthseed, this time went too fast because we have to wrap it up. Is that it also angles in like an angle. You have this straight line narrative of this journal and this plain, simplistic, accessible language. And then you have these obtuse angles of poetry and of art. And you have that juxtaposition. And I love that. There is, and so there's in the midst of chaos, in the midst of awfulness, in the midst of devastation, in the midst of your dark moments, right? What is so human about us is that we can see beauty and find beauty. And there is this scene that just and I think that that's what the Earthseed verses for me are. And reading these passages, it's like a breath of poetry. It's like a breath of it's a breath of beauty. And it's a reminder.
Poetry in the book. The characters remark on the fact that she's writing poetry.
She's writing poetry. She's writing poetry. Oh, here it is. It says, she says, I stared down from the hill from our camp where just a glint of water was visible in the distance through the trees and bushes. The world is full of painful stories. Sometimes it seems as though there aren't any other kind. And yet I find myself thinking how beautiful that glint of water was through the trees.
And I love that because it is hope. And even the end of the book, which is the verse from the Bible about the sower, and it talks about the poor outcomes, the things that couldn't be, and yet the last sentence is, and others fell on good ground and sprang up and bore fruit at and hundredfold.
Yes.
In bounty.
In bounty. And that is like, so that's where she leaves us with this.
Yeah.
That's where she leaves us. And I also think that that's the possibility. And I also think that that's the invitation. And that's the reminder of we're constantly sowing. We're constantly spreading seed.
Yep.
And it's like, where are we spreading it?
Yep. How are we tending?
How are we tending?
Yeah.
And
yet there's still randomness and luck in it too.
Exactly.
And change.
Exactly. And
because
change.
God is change.
God is change. This was so good. This was so good. I'm so excited you want to read the next one because I'm like,
of course.
Definitely want
How
to
could
read
we
the
not?
next one. We have to read the next one. We will definitely do that. This was such a gift. I'm so happy that I now have encountered the brilliant Octavia Butler, and I understand. He said I'm low-key scared to read
you
this
got to
book.
read it.
You
got to
read it. You have to read it. You have to read it. And I'm going to plug this other book too, which is Adrienne Marie Brown. I did a book notes, which is my version of a review. But she is an activist. She's a poet. She's a writer, and this is the first of her trilogy. It's a novella. It's very short, called Grievers, set in Detroit, a city I don't actually know that much about. But she actually is she is a student scholar of Octavia Butler.
Ooh,
And so
writing that
there's,
down.
I just read this one before reading Octavia Butler, and there is something, and I see the similarities in the sense that it's not a story, it's a story, it's fast and slow. It's
Mhm.
things happening and it's not. It's this kind of pull. And so this is a really, and especially since you like this genre, Stephanie,
Oh yeah.
you'll want to read this one. So, oh, that was so good. Thank you so much
Thank
again.
you. This was
Yes,
fabulous. I don't
thank
know what I
you.
expected or hoped for other than just a wonderful time with my wonderful
Yay.
friend.
Yes.
And I loved how we were able to like piece together all the different parts and all. I mean, to anyone who's still watching or may watch later, just read it.
Read it.
It is a gift that will keep
Read
giving
it.
and
Yeah. Yes.
suggest it to other people.
Yes.
I have 4 other people reading this book right now.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
yes. I
Yeah.
was gonna say read it and get someone else to read it, because it is a book that you will
Yeah,
need to
you need to
discuss.
talk about it.
You need to talk about it. You need to talk about it. So thank you, friend, for joining me. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Stephanie will be back. So thank you, and I will see you next time. And yes, go get the book. Bye.
Bye.